Have you ever said something simple but another person understood it in a completely different way? Sometimes misunderstanding does not happen because people speak different languages. It happened because people come from different cultures. A small praise can have a different meaning in another culture. For example, in Indonesia, people often say, maybe later. For many Indonesians, this expression can mean rejection in a polite way. But for some people from another cultures, it may sound like agreement. This small difference may seem unimportant, but it can create confusion in communication. So, in this video, I want to discuss one misunderstanding in intercultural communication related to different communication styles. In daily life, Indonesian people often communicate indirectly. When someone invites us somewhere, asks for help, or offers something, we sometimes avoid saying no directly. Instead, we say things like, maybe later, I will think about it, let's see. Many Indonesians use these expressions because they want to sound polite and avoid hurting other people's feelings. For example, imagine an Indonesian student talking with international student. The international student asks, can he join the meeting tonight? The Indonesian student answers, maybe later. However, the international student thinks the answer means yes, but at a different time. Meanwhile, the Indonesian student actually means they cannot come. As a result, both people misunderstanding each other. One person thinks the answer is unclear, and one person thinks they are already being polite. This kind of misunderstanding often happens in intercultural communication. After learning about this issue, I realized that understanding cultural differences is very important. Sometimes we think another person is rude, unclear, or confusing, when actually they are simply communicating according to their culture. To reduce misunderstanding, people should try to communicate more clearly, especially in intercultural situations. For example, instead of saying, maybe later, it may be better to say, I'm sorry, I cannot join today. This response is clear and easier to understand. At the same time, we should also learn to understand different communication styles without judging them negatively. Direct communication does not always mean impolite, and indirect communication does not always mean dishonest. They are simply different culture styles. Sometimes, misunderstanding begins with only two simple words, not because people want conflict, but because culture quietly shapes the way people speak, listen, and understand each other. And maybe, better communication starts when people stop assuming that everyone communicates in the same way. This issue can be explained using several intercultural communication concepts. The first concept is high context and low context communication. Indonesia is considered a high context culture. In high context cultures, people often communicate indirectly. The listener is expected to understand the meaning from the situation, tone, or context. Because of that, Indonesian people sometimes avoid speaking too directly. On the other hand, many Western cultures are low context cultures. In low context cultures, people usually communicate clearly and directly. They prefer straightforward answers because they believe direct communication is more effective. The second concept is politeness strategy. In Indonesian culture, politeness is very important. People often avoid direct rejection because they want to maintain harmony and show respect to others. That's why expressions like maybe later are commonly used. The third concept is misunderstanding in intercultural communication. People from different cultural backgrounds may interpret the same words differently. Even though both people speak English, misunderstanding can still happen because culture influences communication. This shows that communications is not only about vocabulary or grammar, but also about cultural meaning.